sometimes they just get stuck on your head. They're so small. Should we sing something else besides Jai Radha Madhava? Can we have the songbooks? Yes, sing about a song about Lord Chaitanya. Can we have the songbooks, please? Page 57. Parama Koruna Pahodui Jana Nitai Gora Chandra Pahodui Janan Sabhavatar Sashiramani Kevalananda Kanda Sabhavatar Sashiramani Kevalananda Kanda Bhajo Bhajo Bhai Chaitanya Nitai Surita Vishvasvakori Bhajo Bhajo Bhai Surita Vishvasvakori Vishaya Chariya Sera Semajiya Mukhe Bolo Hari Hari Sera Semajiya Mukhe Bolo Hari Hari Deka Ore Bai Chibubane Nai Hey Mona Doala Data Tribhubane nai e mona doala data Pasupaki jue pasana vidhare suni jara gunagata Samsare Majia Rohili Poria Se Pade Nahilasha Apana Karama Bunjai Samana Koho Elochana Dasa Parama Koruna Pahodui Jana Nitai Gora Chandra Sabhavatar Sashiramani Kevalananda Kanda Bhajo Bhajo Bhai Chaitanya Nitai Surita Vishvasvakori Vishaya Chariya Sera Semajiya Mukhe Bolo Hari Hari Deka Ore Bhai Tribhubane Nai E Mona Doala Data Pasupaki jue pasana vidhare suni jara gunagata Sare Majia, Rohili Poria, Se Padena Ilasa. Apana karma bunjai samona kaho elochana dasa. Can we read the English together? All together? The two lords, Nittai Gaurachandra, Lord Nittai and Lord Chaitanya, are very merciful. They are the essence of all incarnations, and their specific significance is that prosecuting their way of self-realization is simply joyful, for they introduce chanting and dancing. My dear brother, I request that you just worship Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda with firm conviction and faith. If one gives up sense gratification to be Krishna conscious by this process, one is sure to reach the desired goal. One simply has to chant Hare Krishna, Hare, without any sense gratifying motive. My dear brother, you just try and examine this within the three worlds. There is no one like Lord Chaitanya or Lord Nityananda, because their merciful qualities are so great that they make even birds and beasts cry. What to speak of human beings? Even stone will melt at the chanting. My dear mind, you are entrapped in sense gratification and have no attraction for chanting Hare Krishna. Since you have no attraction for the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, what can I say? I can simply think of my misfortune. If someone could get me a glass of water, that would be really appreciated. By the way, Gaurangi, when I used to run a preschool, I taught all the kids that song. So they tell me they all still remember that. So today is Gaur Purnima, March 24th, 2024, Hillsborough, North Carolina, and we're going to read from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 13, texts 19 through 43. So I'm just going to read the translations and the purport. So text 19. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the full moon evening in the month of Falguna. That's today. An auspicious time full of auspicious symptoms when Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advanted himself with the chanting of the holy name, Hare Krishna. On the full moon evening of the month of Falguna, when the Lord took birth, coincidentally, there was a lunar eclipse, and there will be a partial lunar eclipse tomorrow morning, 3:15 in the morning. So we have at least a little bit of lunar eclipse. Thank you so much. At this time of the Falguna Purnima. In jubilation, everyone was chanting the holy name of the Lord, Hari, Hari. And Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then appeared after first causing the appearance of the holy name. So traditionally in India, if there's an eclipse, people don't eat or drink or sleep, and they just chant. And they often, in this case, they go in a holy river, so everybody's out. Some people think you have to stay in your house with the blinds closed, but they would go out and bathe in the Ganga. So they're sitting or standing in the Ganga chanting the holy name. So how amazing that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arranges this, that everybody's chanting for his appearance, even those who have no idea that he's appearing. At his birth, in his childhood, and in his early and later boyhood, as well as in his youth, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, under different pleas, induced people to chant the holy name of Hari, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. In his childhood, when the Lord was crying, he would stop immediately upon hearing the holy names Krishna and Hari. We had at least one of our, some of you remember Hari Parshad, who's visited here? So his little boy was like that when he was a baby, when he was crying and crying and crying. As soon as his parents would chant, he would immediately stop crying. And when they would stop chanting, he would start crying again. So, of course, nobody likes to have their babies cry. So because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would cry unless the local ladies were chanting Hare Krishna, so all the ladies in the village were always gathered at Mother Sachi's house to be chanting Hare Krishna. So even as a baby, he was preaching Krishna consciousness. Actually, one of my god sisters, Ananta, when she joined in Chicago, I don't know, did you remember her? And she joined in Chicago also in 1973. So she said that the reason she joined was that she had, some friend of hers had invited her to the temple, and she had a 2-3-month-old baby, and when she came home from the temple, 2-3-month-old babies don't talk, but her little baby looked at her and said, "Krishna!" And she said, "Okay, I got to move into the Hare Krishna temple." So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was preaching even as a baby. So, sometimes people say that, well, you can meditate and become God. And Srila Prabhupada will always give the example that Sri Krishna killed Putana when he was just 3 months old. In a similar way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was inaugurating the Sankirtan movement when he was a baby. All the friendly ladies who came to see the child would chant the holy names, Hari, Hari, as soon as the child would cry. Actually, I'm thinking even, when our daughter was a baby, and my father would visit us at the temple every week in New York, and he loved to chant Hare Krishna to her because then she would smile. So the whole time that he was there, he'd be going, Krishna, 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 Krishna. When all the ladies saw this fun, they enjoyed laughing and called the Lord Gaurahari. From then on, Gaurahari became another of his names. That's such a sweet story about how the Lord is called Gaurahari. Because he liked to hear them saying Hari, Hari, and he was golden, so they said, okay, your name is Gaurahari. His childhood lasted until the date of Hati Kadi, the beginning of his education. So that's one of the samskaras, that when a child starts school, you have this particular ceremony. So that marks the end of the Kumara age. And at his age, from the end of his childhood until he married, is called Poganda. After his marriage, his youth began, and in his youth, he introduced everyone to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra anywhere and everywhere. During his Poganda age, he became a serious student and also taught disciples. In this way, he used to explain the holy name of Krishna everywhere. When teaching a course in grammar, Vaikarana, and explaining it with notes, so even Lord Chaitanya had notes, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught his disciples about the glories of Lord Krishna. All explanations culminated in Krishna, and his disciples would understand them very easily. Thus, his influence was wonderful. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Srila Jiva Goswami compiled a grammar in 2 parts, named Lagu Hari Namamrita Vaikarana and Brihad Dhari Namamrita Vaikarana. If someone studies these 2 texts in Vaikarana or grammar, he learns the grammatical rules of the Sanskrit language and simultaneously learns how to become a great devotee of Lord Krishna. So that's the way that we should live our life. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his Grihastha days, was a teacher by profession. So he was not only teaching what he was teaching, which was Sanskrit grammar, but he was also teaching simultaneously about Krishna. So that is the goal in all of our occupations, in all of our life. Somehow, whatever we're doing, to also inject Krishna in there. Prabhupada goes on. In the Chaitanya Bhagavata, Madhya Kanda, 1st chapter, there is a statement about the method by which Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught grammar. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained the aphorisms of grammar to be eternal, like the holy name of Krishna. That's pretty far out. So Sanskrit and Sanskrit grammar is eternal. Our languages on this earth are not eternal. They're always changing. English is actually a combination of many other languages that were kind of sloppily glued together, which is why we have such strange spelling and pronunciation and such strange grammar, and it's extremely difficult for non-native speakers to learn English. It's not a particularly pleasant language. And it certainly isn't eternal. At some point, it will probably become a dead language, like, say, Latin is now a dead language. But Sanskrit is the language, Prabhupada says, that's spoken in the spiritual world. And so and Prabhupada often talks about how it's a perfect language. It's perfectly phonetic, like each sound only has one letter and each letter only has one sound. And here Prabhupada's saying that the Sanskrit grammar is eternal, like the holy name of Krishna. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Vedascha sarvar ahmeva vedyaha. The purport of all revealed scriptures is understanding of Krishna. Therefore, if a person explains anything that is not Krishna, he simply wastes his time laboring hard without fulfilling the aim of life. That's a pretty heavy statement. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't explain anything to anybody. Like if somebody says, how do I work this blender? And you're explaining how to work the blender so you can cook for Krishna. It doesn't mean you're wasting your aim of life. So what does Prabhupada mean here? If one simply becomes a teacher or professor of education but does not understand Krishna, it is to be understood that he is among the lowest of mankind, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 7:15, Niradama Maya Parata Jnana. If one does not know the essence of all revealed scriptures, but still becomes a teacher, his teaching is like the disturbing braying of an ass. Wow. So the idea is that the teachers in society are supposed to also know Brahman. They're supposed to be Brahmanas, which means they also know Brahman. Now that doesn't mean that every single sentence out of their mouth is directly related to Krishna in an explicit way. But it means that it underlies everything that they're teaching. And this is something you really notice if you hang out with devotees and if you hang out with non-devotees. That devotees, even if they're talking about how to work the blender or how many miles it is to where they're driving to or whatever, you'll find that they'll keep bringing in something to do with Krishna. Have you noticed that? That it just keeps coming into the conversation. It like pervades and underlies everything that you're doing. Whereas when you're with materialistic people, that's just absent. Have you all noticed this? It's a little subtle. Yeah? But it's very much there. It's not that every moment, every second someone has to say, oh, did you know that Krishna killed Aghasura? It's not exactly like that. You can be a teacher of chemistry, you can be a teacher of mathematics, you can be a teacher of economics. But that sense of the presence of the personality of Godhead should be pervading yourself and also coming out in everything that you do. And this, I really, when Rukmini and I were writing Career Dharma, we expressed this in our chapter called Esoteric Understanding of Work of Value. That all the work we do in this world should be work of value, just on a mundane level of piety. You want to produce some goods or services by your work that's honest and that actually adds value to society. You don't want to produce what we call manufactured needs, where you create something that nobody really needs. And you certainly don't want to create something by your work that is harmful, like tobacco and meat and alcohol and pornography and things like this. But if all we do is produce things of value on an external material level, we're within the realm of karma. And it's a very subtle point, but a very important one. Because if I'm giving something of value to you just on the external platform, I can only give something of value to you that you have karmically earned. I don't have the ability to do good for you on the mundane level beyond what you deserve. If I did, then I could hurt you on the mundane level beyond what you deserve, and that would be an unfair universe. It would be a whimsical universe. So I can only hurt you insofar as you deserve, and I can only help you insofar as you deserve. I'm kind of like the UPS driver. Now, if I choose to do good for you, I get good karma. And if I choose to do bad for you, I get bad karma. But I can't really increase or decrease your destiny. And we've seen, I'm sure we've all experienced, when people try to do good for us, sometimes it doesn't work. Has everyone had this experience? Sometimes someone tries to help us and they're not actually able to help us. Or sometimes someone may try to hurt us and they're not actually able to hurt us. Because we don't have the power to overcome somebody's karma. However, we do have the ability to give people devotional service that they do not deserve. And this is so nicely explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Madhurya Kadambini, when he says, what is the cause of bhakti? Because Krishna is neutral. Krishna is not going to interfere with the free will of the living entity, but the devotees are not neutral, as Prabhupada writes in Bhagavad Gita. The devotees of the Lord are more merciful than the Lord because they know the purpose of the Lord. So therefore, the devotees can go and give Krishna consciousness even to undeserving people. That's what we mean by causeless mercy. And then when the devotee gives Krishna consciousness to someone, then Krishna's mercy follows the mercy of the devotee. And the living entity is given an opportunity to take up Krishna consciousness. So this is giving somebody dynamic good without any concomitant suffering. Because for karmic good, you have to pay for it in some way. Good karma is never free. It's always, there's always a price, a karmic price. But devotional service is not like that. The only price is our desire. That's all. There's no austerity that can gain you Krishna consciousness. It doesn't work like that. Right? Austerity is simply for the purpose of making us more receptive and showing our sincerity to Krishna. Now, it's interesting that Srila Rupa Goswami says that we can be that agent for Krishna consciousness in others just by desiring that, just by our good wishes to give them Krishna consciousness. So in the context of my work, in the context of my livelihood, my occupation, because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as a grahasta, he had to have an occupation. If I'm desiring to give others Krishna consciousness, then my work takes on a different quality, and my interaction with them takes on a different quality. I remember one time when I had some x-ray or something at UNC Hospital, and I was signing in, with the people at the desk, right, where they get your name and your birthday and make sure you have an appointment and tell you to wait. And the guy had on his wall a little thing he had written, treat everyone you're dealing with as if they're very dear to the Lord. Everyone you deal with, try to give them in some way the love of God. I mean, it had a whole list of like 5 things like this. And I thought, yes, this is the perfection of one's work. That somehow, like yesterday we celebrated Abhimanyu's birthday, and on the way back, Nisinga was saying, why doesn't everyone know about Krishna? And I said, well, most people, at least they've heard of God. He's the most famous. So somehow to have this sense of the personality of Godhead, and whatever we're doing, whatever interaction we're having, whether in the course of our work, whether in the course of our shopping, whether in the course of anything, to be that agent to give love of God to others somehow or other. Somehow or other. I mean, where I'm right now reading in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes to meet Prakasananda Sarasvati on the request of his devotees who wanted Mahaprabhu to defeat the Mayavadi sannyasis. And he doesn't immediately just preach to them directly. What he does is he sits down with the shoes. He sits down where people take off their shoes and wash their feet. And he displays an effulgence. He displays his Brahman effulgence. And so Prakasananda Sarasvati is impelled by 2 things. First of all, he's impelled by seeing that actually Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Narayana, because the Mayavadi sannyasis call each other Narayana. Oh, Narayana, how are you doing today? Oh, I don't know, Narayana, how are you doing today? So they're calling each other Narayana. Where Prakasananda Sarasvati could see that Mahaprabhu was actually Narayana, and he was moved by Mahaprabhu's humility. And he gave him his hand. There's that nice painting in the CC. He gave him his hand to take him out of the shoe area. So in that way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu engaged Prakasananda Sarasvati in some agyata sukriti and softened his heart. And Srila Prabhupada is saying here, if we're expert materially in some occupation, but we don't have Krishna as part of our occupation, then everything we're doing is just on the level of an animal. It's not actually human life if we don't have some consciousness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Actually, it's stated in the Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, that humanity is the residence of God. And Prabhupada often talks about how the animals, they have no religion, they have no sense of God. But in the human society, we have temples, we have churches, we have mosques, we have synagogues, and we call these places the house of God. And of course, when we put on tilak, that is saying that my body becomes a house of God. Yes, when we put on the different tilak markings with the different mantras, Om Narayana Namaha, Om Madhavaya Namaha, Om Govindaya Namaha, right? There's this really nice, someday I should memorize the Sanskrit, but mantra for the tilak one puts on the top of one's head, that the Lord is surrounded by Bhu and Shri and his 4 weapons and Sudarshan chakra, and there he is sitting at the top of our head when we say the mantra and we put the tilak on our head. So we should be a walking temple. That's the idea, not just some ritualistic, but we should be a walking temple. We should be a walking tirtha. It was explained that Vidura was like this. He was a walking tirtha. Wherever he would go, automatically people would have that connection. So you may know the Sanskrit word tirtha, it means like a ford, not a car ford. A ford in a river, a narrow place where you can cross. So a tirtha is a place where you can easily cross from the material world to the spiritual world. So all of us, whatever we may be doing, whether we're bankers, whether we're software engineers, whether we're teachers, whether we're artists, whether we're plumbers, we should be acting as a tirtha. So sometimes people also say, well, unless you're just, living as a brahmana by occupation, you can't really fully be a Vaishnava. So there's some propaganda like this going around in our own movement. We want to restore the Indian caste system to our Krishna. Actually, someone is overtly saying this, by the way, to our Hare Krishna movement. But Giriraj Maharaj recounts that when Prabhupada was challenged in India, why are you giving the second initiation? Why are you giving the Gayatri mantras to a carpenter? And Prabhupada said, no, this person knows Brahman, and therefore they are acting in that capacity. They are actually acting as a teacher of society. By Varna designation, you can say, by Varna designation, they're doing work of a Shudra. But because they understand Brahman, they're actually teaching the whole society, even through their carpentry. It's like Srila Prabhupada, Gopal Krishna Maharaj, right? When he was a householder, he was working in an advertising agency, and he was advertising Pepsi-Cola and Clairol hair dye. And in the New York temple on Henry Street, how do we say this? The brahmacharis were treating him very badly. They would never allow him to speak and give class, and they were telling him he was just in Maya. And then Prabhupada wrote this letter, and he said when Tamal Krishna Maharaj left India to preach in America, when he stopped being the GBC in India, and Karandar left his post as head of Spiritual Sky. So Srila Prabhupada wrote, he said, this Gopal Krishna, he's qualified to run Spiritual Sky or to be GBC of India, but I don't want him to quit his job. I want him to keep his job. And the devotees were so astonished. Why does Prabhupada want him to keep his job? Of course, then after a while, Prabhupada decided that we desperately needed a GBC of India, and he sent him to India. Because Prabhupada wanted us to be spreading Krishna consciousness through the world. Prabhupada wanted the political leaders, the business leaders, agricultural leaders, the leaders in artistry, the leaders in the trades and the crafts, everywhere. Prabhupada wanted those people to be Vaishnavas. How wonderful if we can have Vaishnav carpenters and Vaishnav plumbers and Vaishnav professors and Vaishnav doctors and Vaishnav politicians. Wouldn't that be nice if we had a Vaishnav politician? And Vaishnav business owners. And to do this in a way where Krishna consciousness is also being transmitted. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also showed this example in his Grahastha life. How to be a Grahastha in such a way that your work is infused with Krishna. Going on to text 30. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a student, he asked whomever he met to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. In this way, he inundated the whole town of Navadvip with the chanting of Hare Krishna. So I'm not going to read this purport. It's about the 9 islands of Navadvip. Text 31, just prior to his youthful life, he began the Sankirtan movement. Day and night, he used to dance in ecstasy with his devotees. The Sankirtan movement went on from one part of the town to another as the Lord wandered everywhere performing kirtan. In this way, he inundated the whole world by distributing love of Godhead. So we look at the Bengali, Nagare, Nagare, Brahme. So Nagare, Nagare, village, village, Brahme is wandering. Kirtana Kariya. Kariya is to do. He was doing kirtan. Bashaila Tribhuvana, Prema Bhakti Diya. All right, well, we have Bashaila is to inundate. Shaila is water. And we have Tribhuvana. What does that literally mean? The 3 worlds. My dear friends, that means the whole cosmos, the whole universe. You know, Alpha Centauri, the Milky Way. So you may read this and think, well, this is a little hyperbole here. So what is Srila Prabhupada saying, the purport? This is one of these purports where I just kind of think, I wonder how that's going to happen. One may raise the question, how all 3 worlds became inundated with love of Krishna, since Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed kirtan only in the Navadvip area. The answer is that Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. The entire cosmic manifestation results from the Lord's first setting it in motion. Okay, so Prabhupada's making a philosophical, logical point here. The Lord sets it in motion and it unfolds. Right? We know Mahavishnu, he has this lotus stem and the lotus flower, and in the lotus stem are the seeds of all the planets, and then Lord Brahma takes it and expands it. Similarly, since the Sankirtana movement was first set in motion 500 years ago by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's desire that it spread all over the universe, the Krishna consciousness movement, in continuity of that same motion, is now spreading all over the world. Are you ready for this? Everybody ready? Hold on to your seats. And in this way, it will gradually spread all over the universe. With the spread of the Krishna consciousness movement, everyone will merge in an ocean of love of Krishna. So Prabhupada writes this occasionally as if several purports where Prabhupada will say these sort of things. And whenever I read it, I always think, how exactly will that happen? You know? My godsister Narayani once had a dream that she was helping Prabhupada start a Krishna Balaram temple on another planet. So, you know, how exactly will this happen? I don't know. Are we going to get spaceships? Are we going to all go in spaceships and take this Sankirtan party to other planets? You know, I was just hearing this morning Prabhupada saying, you can't go to higher planets just by going in a spaceship. They have their immigration and visa department. So I don't know how that's going to work. Are we, you know, are some of us going to take birth with Prabhupada on other planets and spread the movement there? You know, Prabhupada would also say that often in the kirtans, the demigods were coming. Sometimes after a kirtan, he'd look at the devotees and he'd say, did you see Narada Muni? He was in the kirtan. So maybe sometimes the demigods come to our kirtan and then they get so enlivened that they take Krishna consciousness back to their planet. Just like one of the ways that we distribute books in areas of the world where it's highly illegal to distribute books, as in if you're caught distributing a non-Muslim book or a religious book of any kind, you will be put into prison. Like when I was preaching in China, so I couldn't wear a sari in public. I mean, at least in the Muslim countries, I can wear a sari because there's lots of Indians there, they don't mind. But in China, you couldn't wear a sari, you couldn't wear a tilak. And when I was there for Nasinga Chaturdasi, and we had to have a gathering in someone's apartment, and it took like an hour to start because only 3 people could come at a time. They don't have freedom of assembly there. So, you know, few people come up, and you have to wait like 5-10 minutes, and another 3 people come up, and you have to wait 5-10 minutes, and another 3 people come up. And if you're caught distributing books about religion, you know, you're going to be put in jail. At least you're going to be deported. At least. You know, we think about how, maybe some of you have read Salted Bread. the book Salted Bread. That's why I have this ring, the author. I edited his book, and as a gift, he gave me his Sudarshan Chakra ring. So there he was distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, and just for that, he and his friend, Sachi Sutta, were put in prison for 3 years by the KGB, where they were beaten, and I mean like really beaten. He lost sight in his right eye, and his back is broken. It was very severe, and all they could eat for 2 years was bread and salt, because the KGB they didn't exactly arrange for a vegetarian diet for them in prison, and they were in a Soviet labor camp simply for distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. So one way that we get Srila Prabhupada's books to parts of the world where it's illegal is in airports. So in airports, devotees will distribute, say, Arabic language books and to people who are, or Mandarin books, to people going to those countries, and the people will take the book in their suitcase. Everybody understands? Right? Somehow you get it to someone who's going to that country. So perhaps this is one way we're spreading Krishna consciousness all over the universe, is the demigods are coming to our Sankirtan party, and they're picking it up and they're taking it back to their planet with them. So that may also be one way, but I'm not really quite sure about this. This is something that hopefully someday I'll understand how it is that what we're doing. Yes, Marish. Yeah. The demigods, right. Maharaj is saying from the Chaitanya Bhagavat, it's explained that when they saw the mercy was given to Jagai and Madai, that the demigods started taking up the Sankirtan movement. So perhaps in that way, it's spreading all over the universe. Maybe we have some demigods in here that I can't see right now. Who knows? Text 33. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lived in the Navadvip area for 24 years, and he induced every person to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and thus merge in love of Krishna. Of course, he would do this by his evening pastimes in the house of Srivas Thakur, and also through public kirtans, which got him in trouble with the government. And of course, we have that very famous pastime where Mahaprabhu engaged in what Prabhupada called civil disobedience and brought the big kirtan to the house of the Qazi, and where the Qazi revealed to him that he had been threatened by Lord Nrsingadev. And the Qazi became a great devotee, and he said that as long as there's generations in my family, we will never prohibit the Sankirtan movement. And you can go to where the Qazi's body is buried, and we worship his samadhi as a great Vaishnava. For his remaining 24 years, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after accepting the renounced order of life, stayed at Jagannath Puri with his devotees. For 6 of these 24 years in Nilachala, Jagannath Puri, he distributed love of Godhead by always chanting and dancing. Beginning from Cape Comorin and extending through Bengal to Vrindavan, during these 6 years he toured all of India, chanting, dancing, and distributing love of Krishna. So that's 12 years altogether. Day and night, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt separation from Krishna. Manifesting symptoms of this separation, he cried and talked very inconsistently, like a madman. Wait, did I skip? Sorry, I skipped. I'm going to go back. So I'm going to read. I had 2 pages stuck together, so I'm going to go back. Text 36 again. Beginning from Cape Comorin and extending through Bengal to Vrindavan, during these 6 years he toured all of India, chanting, dancing, and distributing love of Krishna. These activities of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his travels after he accepted sannyas are his principal pastimes, and I find that quite significant. His activities during his remaining 18 years are called the Anchalila, or the final portion of his pastimes. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in those 6 years, why is Krishnadas Kaviraj considering those his principal pastimes? Anyone have any? I mean, I have some thoughts, but anyone have any thoughts on that? Yes. And what people specifically was he educating or being educated by during that time? He was dealing mainly with brahmanas and high-class people, yes. Who was he preaching to? The Vedantists, okay. The Ramanujacharya people, yeah. Madhvites, Buddhists. I'm repeating for the internet people. Tigers and lions. That's what we just read in Paramakarna. Pasu paki jue, pasanavinhare, sunijada gunagata. Tigers. Don't try that one at home, please. I mean, you can go to the zoo and chant to the animals. Ramananda Roy. We have Ramananda Samvada was happening. Of course, then Ramananda was externally preaching to him. And he's also instructing whom? Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Rupa and Sanatan. So if you look at Chaitanya Charitamrita, you'll see that the volumes of Madhya, there's like so many volumes of Madhya Lila and a lot less of Adi and Anta Lila. And in teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Srila Prabhupada is concentrating on this time when Mahaprabhu was giving instructions to Rupa, to Sanatan, having the discussion with Ramananda Roy, right? Instructing Prakasananda Sarasvati, as we were saying, the Buddhists, the Mayavadis, the Tattvavadis. So these are considered his principal pastimes because this is when Mahaprabhu is really establishing all of the tattva of our sampradaya. And he's coming, right? Mahaprabhu's coming because he wants to have his own personal experience of tasting the love of Srimati Radharani. And he's also coming to inaugurate the Sankirtan movement and teach spontaneous love for Krishna. He wants to take people beyond just awe and reverence love for Krishna to spontaneous love. He wants to take people to Goloka Vrindavan, not just to Vaikuntha. And this he's doing through his instructions during this time. I mean, if you really meditate on what's the main contribution philosophically of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, you're going to find it's the science of spontaneous love that's especially explained through rasa that's given by Srila Rupa Goswami, taught to Srila Sanatana Goswami, Srila Rupa Goswami's guru, and then put into writing, a little indirectly in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita and very directly and explicitly in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And then, of course, all of the rasa literature of all of the Goswamis that then explain the Ragatmika devotees. So you have this whole process of the sadhana of spontaneous devotion, and then you have the whole explanation of the prayojana of spontaneous devotion. So therefore it's considered his principal pastimes. For 6 of the 18 years, he continuously stayed in Jagannath Puri. He regularly performed kirtan, inducing all the devotees to love Krishna simply by chanting and dancing. For the remaining 12 years he stayed in Jagannath Puri, he taught everyone how to taste the transcendental mellow ecstasy of love of Krishna by tasting it himself. So that's the idea of acharya. Acharya is supposed to not just teach something theoretically, but also exemplify it. Prabhupada would say example is better than precept. And that's true on many levels. It's hard to understand how to do something, especially something very subtle and very esoteric, unless I have some example. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is setting that example. Of course, all of his followers are also supposed to be setting that example so people can see, what does Krishna consciousness look like? That's something people are often very interested when they come, what do you do all day? How do you live as a devotee? What's your example? How do you take theory into practice? So like as I was teaching Varnashram just now all over the world, so I had 3 places where the community leaders wanted to make their community a model of career dharma. And it had to be communities that were complicated enough that we had all 4 of the fields there, which most temples are not that complicated, but not so complicated like, say, Mayapur Dham. That would not be a good test place. It's way too complicated. And so we're working, Rukmini and I are working with these leaders to actually set up a system to everyone understand what is their nature and then understand how the different fields work with each other so we can have a model. And then we can say to people, okay, this is not just something in a book, it's not just something in the Shastra, and it's not even just something in a book written by two scholars, but it's also something that you can go and experience. And then you can take that, and we have some devotees who work with various governments who said, I actually have some inroads with the prime minister of such and such government, and if you can show us not only the blueprint, but you can show us a model, then I can involve those government officers. And Prabhupada wanted something like that too, like he told Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj, I'd like Manipur to become the first Krishna conscious state. I think he said that in a few other places as well. Prabhupada wanted us, this is another hold on to your seats, folks, Prabhupada wanted us to do that in the United States. Because while Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur sent disciples to preach in London, Prabhupada said, really what's going on now is that people are following the United States. And that is still true. Even though America gets criticized all over the world, we're also still imitated. The music, the fashion, the mentality, the culture of America is pervading the world. And therefore, if we can show some model in America, then that's something that the whole world will take up. And Srila Prabhupada really, really wanted us to do that. Those of us who are Americans, we have a great, great facility in that people look up to us as models in the world. And if we can exemplify Krishna consciousness in our own life and in our own being, that is extremely powerful. Let's read Srila Prabhupada's purport. This is to text 39. A person who is advanced in Krishna consciousness always feels separation from Krishna, because such a feeling of separation excels the feeling of meeting Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his last 12 years of existence within this world at Jagannath Puri, taught the people of the world how, with a feeling of separation, one can develop his dormant love of Krishna. Such feelings of separation or meeting with Krishna are different stages of love of Godhead. Now, you'll find in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, for each particular relationship with Krishna, each what's called the Staibhav, which is like servant, friendship, parental, and even in neutrality, Srila Rupa Goswami will describe that love in terms of both meeting and separation. So he'll have a section on meeting and a section of separation, and he often gives subcategories of each for each type of relationship, because that's a very important part of love, this meeting and separation, that the meeting with Krishna gives more ecstasy to the separation, and the separation with Krishna gives more ecstasy to the meeting. These feelings develop in time when a person seriously engages in devotional service. That's the point. The point is to develop those feelings. Prabhupada calls it here dormant. The word dormant means sleeping. It's existent. We have some people who make propaganda. It's not existent. It's existent. It's just sleeping. And they awaken, jiv jago, they awaken in time. The feelings is what we want to awaken, is those feelings. We're not interested just in being able to pass a multiple choice exam on philosophy. It's not like that. It's not like you go to the spiritual world and they're going to say, all right, can you please tell me, all the names of the 9 yogendras? Got one of them wrong. Okay, another birth. Not like that. I met this Muslim preacher in Bahrain, and she said, when you come to the gates of heaven, there's going to be 3 questions, and if you can't answer those 3 questions properly, you can't go to heaven. One of them that was really funny was you have to name all the prophets. Who are the prophets? You have to give a list of all the prophets. Now, she said, if you don't know about Muhammad, you don't have to list him. But if you know about him, you have to give him on your list. Otherwise, you're not allowed in. And I thought, well, I don't know why you guys, I didn't say about it. I thought, I don't know why you guys are preaching then, because people are at a bigger advantage if they don't know about him. Once they know about him, then they're finished if they don't say anything. So it's not like that. You know, I was at temple once where they were asking me, how can we make Krishna consciousness fun in the Sunday school? And I said, well, if you're conscious of Krishna, you're going to be having fun, because Krishna's always having fun. I said, if you're not having fun, I don't know who you're conscious of, Durga or somebody, but not Krishna. And they were showing me what they did, with the way they were teaching. And they would have kids read a story. They were showing me, they read the story of Dhruva Maharaj, and then they would answer these multiple choice exams. And I said, well, this is terrible. They said, well, yeah, we're having a problem that all the kids, as soon as they turn 12, they stop coming. As soon as their parents can't force them anymore. And I said, well, this is awful. They're already doing this in school, and then they have to come to the temple and do this again. I said, why are you doing this? And she said, well, we have to teach them Divya Gyan. I said, that's not Divya Gyan. So obviously we want to know these details, otherwise there'd be no reason why it's in the scriptures. But the purpose of studying these details is so we awaken these feelings. Like when I first read Teachings of Lord Chaitanya when I was in college, I got stuck on the chapter where Mahaprabhu was explaining the different incarnations of the Lord with the different symbols and the different arms, because I thought I had to memorize all of that. And I'm just like, oh my God. So I never finished the book at that point. So many, many years later, I was talking to my friend Srimati in Vrindavan, and I said, why is Mahaprabhu doing that? And she said, because he's meditating on Krishna's arms. And I'm like, oh, wow. And Krishna's explaining in the Bhagavad Gita 12:9 that the whole purpose of Abhyas Yoga, which is another name for sadhana bhakti, Abhyas is practice, repetition, is to develop icha, to develop a desire. These feelings develop in time when a person seriously engages in devotional service, Prabhupada saying. The highest stage is called prema bhakti.